A co-founder of the Libertarian Party of Georgia, she has been active in the libertarian movement for over 4 decades. Last year, the National Libertarian Party honored her with the Thomas Paine Award for outstanding communication of libertarian ideas, principles, and values. A communication expert, Sharon conducts communication workshops for libertarians all over the country. She is the author of the Amazon best-selling book, How to Be a Super Communicator for Liberty. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sharon Harris.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here today. I love the theme of the conference, which the message matters. And does it ever matter? We have a glorious message. And so what I would like to share with you today is the fact that because we have such a wonderful message that is so important, one of the things we have to do is have good messengers. And so that's what I would like to share with you today. I do a communication workshop where I go either half day all the way through a whole weekend. So I won't be able to share all of that with you, but what I'm going to do is share with you a libertarian dozen. And what I mean by libertarian dozen is it will be more than a dozen because we always give more than we promise as libertarians. So I'm going to share as many ideas as I can with you in this short period of time, and I hope you will grab at least one or two of these great tips and make yourself a much better messenger for liberty because it is so important. The first rule of libertarian communication is to do no harm. And this may sound a little funny, but it's absolutely true. That one of the things as libertarians, we are individualists. So we do not like to be considered part of a collective. But the fact is, every time you talk with someone about a libertarian idea, you represent all libertarians. So because of that, it's very important what you say and what impression you make. Because each of us, as we talk to someone about libertarian ideas, that's the impression they have about what a libertarian is and how good a person we are and how much they would like to have a libertarian society. So that's the first rule. And what we can do is think about the golden rule. And everyone knows the golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It also translates to be don't do to others what you would not like done to you. And that's one of the things that we need to remember. How many times would you like to have someone scream at you or act like you're stupid because you don't understand what they said, or disagree, someone who disagrees with you so much that they won't even listen to what you have to say? You would not like that, and I cannot remember a time when I was ever convinced of something by someone arguing with me or acting like I was stupid. So I choose to not do that with other people. And it's a really great idea to remember that arguments may be fun and they may be good sport and they may be hobbies of some of us. But if we want to persuade other people to believe what we believe and to further the libertarian cause, we need to not argue with people. We need to be kind to other people. We need to listen to their concerns. And one of the things that's very important for us to learn is to learn how to listen. And that's something that no one teaches us how to do. We all want to talk and not listen. And that's a very common thing. I'm like that myself. And so I have to remind myself that if I don't listen to what the other person is saying, I will not know what their concerns are, and I will not be able to address those concerns. And that's one of the important things that we want to do is we want to address each person's concerns. And we know that we have a lot of great answers. In fact, we have answers, I believe, to all the problems that we have in our country, the political and economic problems that we have. And so those answers are important, and we want people to understand them, but we have to understand what their concerns are first. I ask everyone to be bold in your presentation of ideas. And Marshall Fritz, the founder of the Advocates, was fond of saying, be bold and be nice. And if you can't be both, be nice. And I think he had a really good point there, that it's very good, a very important thing for us to be nice to people and kind to people and someone that people like to talk to. But at the same time, we want to be bold. We do not need to compromise our principles. Our principles are great, and we need to have the courage to stand up for those principles and to never water them down. It's not necessary to water them down in order to present the ideas and get people to understand them. I urge you also to always use the L word, the word libertarian. When you're talking about an idea and an issue and you're giving the libertarian view, label it as such so people will understand that there's not just one thing. There's a movement out there. There are a lot of libertarians who agree with them on a lot of issues. So use that word so they will continue to look to libertarians to solve the different problems that they're looking at. Be patient and don't expect anyone to believe everything that you believe the first time you talk to them. We have what's been referred to as the curse of knowledge. We have studied these things for a long time. We know a lot about politics, a lot about economics, about foreign policy, about all kinds of things. And picture in your mind, if you were talking to an astrophysicist and you knew nothing about astrophysics, and you asked them a question and they started using all the jargon that they know after all of their studies, you would immediately be kind of turned off, and you would also be bored, and you would also be confused. And a lot of people don't understand what we're saying, not because they're less intelligent than us, but because they don't know as much. So we need to take time to give them the ability to grasp what we're talking about, not talk down to them, but meet them at their level of knowledge. And that brings me to the idea of using short answers to things. There's a story about a little boy who came running in from playing, and he said, Mommy, where did I come from? And she's thinking, oh, well, I've been waiting. I knew he was going to ask this, so I'm going to explain to him. So she sits him down, and she tells him the whole story of the birds and the bees. And he's listening there patiently. And when she finishes, she says, well, did that answer your question? And he said, well, not really, because Jimmy said he came from Boston. He was not looking for the long answer. He was just looking for one little bit of information. So if you pay attention, you understand that someone may just want a short answer. They may want to just know a little bit. And if they want to know more, they will ask. If they don't ask, they're not interested right now. So you don't want to lecture a person and give them too much information. So keep it short, silly, K-I-S-S. When you're talking with someone, take yes for an answer. What a wonderful thing to do. You will find when you're talking to someone that many people will agree with you on things. When you find an area of agreement, compliment them for being so intelligent. I mean, bask in the joy of having a rapport with a person and an agreement with a person. At the same time, it's important to take no for an answer because we have a limited amount of time to talk to people, a limited number of people that we can talk to. And so what we want to do is take no for an answer and realize that some people are really not interested and we may be wasting our time. Another good tip to use is to use the word you instead of the word I. Let me give you a good example of that. Let's suppose you were telling someone that you thought it was really wrong for people to have to pay property taxes for school system when their children didn't go to the school. And this is a really good point to be making. It would be easy to say, I don't think it's fair for me to have to pay property taxes. I don't have any children in the local school. Well, that's true, but try this instead. What if you said to them, you know, I don't think you should have to pay property tax to support a school when your children do not go to that school. How much better that is to get across. The person then knows, this has meaning to me. They're concerned about me, not just themselves. I think that's a very important point to make. The power of questions is another thing to explore, and that is that if you ask a person a question, a lot of times you will get further than actually giving them the answer. Let me give you a good example of that. Let's suppose someone is very concerned about the poor and they want to help the poor, and you know that, and so you're talking to them, and they ask you some question about welfare. Now, you could tell them a whole lot about why government welfare doesn't work and why it is wrong and so forth. But better still, ask them this question. Say, I noticed that you really do care about taking care of the poor. Let me ask you a question, and that is, what if you won the lottery tomorrow and you had $1 million? Well, you had $500,000 after you had to pay the government half of it, but you had $1 million, $500,000 that you could give to help the poor. You had two choices. You could give it to the government welfare program for them to distribute, or you could give it to a well-known charity who had a record of sending 98% of their money to help the poor. Which would you do? And then be very quiet, because the person will come up with the right answer, all on their own, which is a wonderful thing. Always have intellectual integrity. Don't mind saying, I don't know. If you don't know the answer to a question, always make sure you give documented information. Do not say something that you don't know for sure is true. And always have the utmost of integrity in everything that you say. Remember, the words that you use are very important. And it's fun to find some really good words that are very persuasive, much more persuasive than other words. So I'm just going to give you just a few examples of those. One is the word abolish. We love to say abolish. Let's abolish the FDA. Let's abolish the FCC. Let's abolish, et cetera, et cetera. And to some people, that sounds really scary. And so you could use some other words. One good word to use is replace. To just simply say, we would like to replace the FDA with something that is much more powerful, much more fair, much more effective, and all of those good things. And so then you can tell them about how it would work if you turn things over to the private sector. Another really good word to use, you're talking about the drug war, for example, is to call it prohibition, because it is, and most people realize that prohibition of alcohol did not work. Government schools, that's a great thing to use. There's no such thing as a public school. They are government schools. They are run by the government. Use that word, and it gets people thinking. Talk about separation. Everyone believes in separation of church and state. Talk about separation of school and state. Talk about separation of marriage and state. Talk about separation of the economy and state. These are great provocative terms that help people think and see how things are really organized. Remember that government is not us. We are prone to say things like, well, we sent troops over to Afghanistan. We sent troops into Iraq. No, we didn't. The government did. So be sure to say the government did this rather than we did, because you and I did not do that, and the person you're talking to did not do that, and would not choose to do that most of the time if they had the choice. I have a lot more that I could share with you, and I would like to do that at a future time, and I hope that if you would to contact me, I'll be glad to do a communication workshop for you. And you can also check out my book, which is How to Be a Super Communicator for Liberty. And if you go to Amazon and type in my name, Sharon Harris, you'll see the book there. You can borrow it for free. You can purchase it.
Thank you so much, Sharon Harris. Thank you so much, Sharon, for your presentation. I have a couple of questions for you, please.
Okay.
Advocates for Self-Government authored the world's smallest political quiz. Was this an effective communication tool? Why? And if so, where can people find it?
That's a wonderful question. I'm so glad you asked that. The world's smallest political quiz is probably the best outreach tool in the libertarian movement. It's a wonderful thing. You can find it online at theadvocates.org/quiz. So you can take it and you can tell people to take it. And you can also purchase cards of the world's smallest political quiz. It is a great conversation starter, and it has actually changed the political map, which is a wonderful thing because the left-right line doesn't include libertarians. And so I urge everyone to use the quiz, have some in your pocket, and when you start talking to someone, just show it to them. And what it shows them and what it allows you to share with them is who agrees with them most. And a lot of times they find out, hey, I may be a libertarian. So it's a really wonderful tool to use, and I highly recommend it.
When I am communicating my message, for example, how important is it to consider the political bent, i.e. conservative or liberal, of my audience?
That is very, very important. And what you can do when you're aware of that, and one of the things, as I mentioned, you learn to listen to people and pay attention to what their views are. And that helps you to communicate with the person, because then you can use something we call political cross-dressing, which is the idea that you can present a liberal idea to a conservative and a conservative idea to a liberal. And actually what you're doing is you're presenting libertarian ideas to both of them. But it's very important, because once you know, for example, that someone is a conservative, you can make some assumptions, and that is that they're probably for gun rights. And so you can talk to them about how libertarians believe in preserving their gun rights. And so that gives you an opening to have a rapport and an agreement with them about guns. The same thing when you're talking to a liberal, you know that they might have a particular interest in civil liberties, and you can tell them how libertarians agree with them. And then you can also present the things on the other side that they may not agree with now, but if you present them in a way that will appeal to their particular political view, you can get a convert much quicker. So I think it's a really important thing to know when you're starting to talk to someone.
Thank you so much, Sharon. We're so happy that you appeared today on the ICON 2 conference. You are a great inspiration, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.